Now start the GP's Cafe. Today is the it's the first GP's Cafe for this month. We would be having 2 GP's Cafes for this month. So this would be the first one. So we have Asita with us for today's GP's Cafe. In addition to the clinical pearls, we are also going to discuss. So today, the GP's Cafe would be chaired by our colleague and friend Gobit. Gobit is a council member of the Spice Road Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's Young Family Doctors Movement of Wonka. So Gobit, over to you to chair and moderate the session from this moment onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone well during this pandemic time. So without taking time, I will introduce today's speaker, Dr. Asita Kosala Tanipuri-Arachi, who is the MCGP diplomat from the College of General Practitioners, Sri Lanka. He's a family physician who has a part-time practice in Kekirawa and Anuradhapura. And also he currently is working as at a public health sector as a MOH in Kekirawa. So he maybe has vast knowledge and having the preventive care about COVID as well about the home care. So we would have I think we would have a great session with him. So today's topic is distance home care for COVID, GP's story. Dr. Asita, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gobit. Am I audible?
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen.
Sure. Yes.
Is it visible to all of you? Can you read the fonts?
Yeah, this is good. It's audible and as well we can visible.
Thank you, Gobit. It's very nice to have my story with you in this great evening. Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for inviting me, Dr. Sankar and Dr. Gobit, for this GP's Cafe. So today I'm going to share my story, what I did in 2020 first month of May. Before I went to Medical Officers of Health Kekirawa, I was mental health doctor at Kekirawa Hospital. So at that time, I was doing my mental health activities and my clinics. So I was doing my, and I have done my MCGP fellowship in 2021. So I have finished that time my course. So I was ready with this story. And the concept was shared by our college. They were discussing about the home care before anyone was thinking about home care in Sri Lanka. So they revised some documents were sharing all over, and we were given the idea. So by then it was discussed and it was yet to be implemented in the health ministry. But I know that GP's college sent many letters to health ministries regarding home care. So I had the privilege of having some view about documents shared, and it was revised one time. And it was a budding enthusiasm all around the GPs, how to do home care. And there were emails going here and there, inviting us to be doctors online and also for this whole session. We felt it was a timely need, and many patients were kept at home because in hospitals they didn't have time. That time the intermediate care center concept was not there and the centers were not there. So I was a little bit worried about going into this arena. How could I give some care to COVID patients? Because I, as a GP, when I was in Colombo and Kekirawa, I was sharing and caring my patients online and in WhatsApp they were calling me online. And sometimes I even sent messages with prescriptions and messages in WhatsApp and Viber with prescriptions. So that was for minor ailments, but not for COVID, because touching COVID and caring for COVID patients at home was a bit rare experience, and as well as a nightmare for me that time. I was registered in few online patient care platforms that was shared through Ministry of Health. Doctors sent us some emails and we got registered, but the registration was very much erroneous. I got all the time error messages. I could not register for the online platforms, but then continuous messages, I got fed up with that. But as busy clinicians, we all are sharing sometimes dual roles. Some GPs are full-time GPs, but I am a part-time GP. I had to do my role as mental health doctor in the hospital and general practitioner morning and night at my practice. So until this request came by from my friend, I didn't touch about COVID home care. So now I'm going to discuss about my friend, my schoolmate. I'm a royalist where I studied from 1989 to 1997. So I did my A-levels in 1997 and got passed to medical college. So we had a Viber group with more than 200 friends, schoolmates, my batchmates. So this friend, a Tamil person, was living in a luxury apartment, and he was at the 4th floor. That is the maximum, and he was living with a family of 5: his mother, his beloved wife, and 2 kids. And his wife was suffering from hypothyroidism, and she was taking thyroxine. And my friend and his mother both were suffering from diabetes, and they were all on regular follow-up, and they were this. And my friend's mother was going to Teaching Hospital Kalbovila for her clinic. He was 43 years, and his wife was 37 years, and mother 71 years. They had 2 kids, 5.5 and 2.5, both girls. So the index patient, my friend, was diabetic, and his mother was 2. He was running a business and selling retail goods from wholesale sellers. And this diabetes was not very much well controlled when I was looking after him. He got his COVID-19 from next door neighbor, with also a businessman, and he was doing business of, he was doing as a clearing agent in customs. So they had a drink, next door person, it's a social gathering, and that's how he told me that he contracted the disease. It was positive. Then my friend got fever, slight fever, and then he on 24th of May this year, 2021, he went to a PCR at Teaching Hospital Kalbovila, and next day he got the report positive. And on 25th of May, both his mother and wife got positive. They were given very much fast reports from Teaching Hospital Kalbovila, amazing service, because in Anuradhapura at Kakirawa, we are waiting for 3 to 5 days for PCR reports. This was on the second wave of COVID, and so mother and wife also got positive on 25th of May. So this person, even though he was my schoolmate, I never treated him for any other diseases, but he got my opinions here and there for his medical issues. Among this Viber group and WhatsApp group where we had chats and all sort of sharing and caring with our friends, I had a good reputation among them as a person in medical field who replied them, who looked after them, and who even sent some prescription for them for their minor ailments. So they had a good relationship with me. They had trust with me, all of them. So that's why even though I have my batchmates and my schoolmates were many consultants are there in different calibers, even though they had consultants and specialists among our friends, they were looking upon to me for their matters in medical field. So I believe the trust that they kept on me was the first reason that they chose me as a person who can look up to at this COVID pandemic situation. All the time, my friend Nagu was calling me, and he even created a WhatsApp group for quick communication between myself and his family. And even we had a respiratory physician, Dr. Riaz Maujud, who now serves in Nawaloko Hospital, was also added, and we both had a look at the family. So this is how they themselves try to communicate to us about the temperatures of the family members. So this is the 26th of May at 2:35, the temperatures of all 5 people in the family. You can see the slight high and normal temperatures. Even they had a pulse oximeter at home, which was given by one of their friends. It was used by, I never asked them to do any exercises so to get any exercise in this situation. But he kept on sending me these pictures and asked me for my opinion. It was 250 kilometers away from my physical place to their home. They were in Colombo, and I was at Tekla. It's a real home-based care. PCR reports all positives. But my main concern was on the 71-year-old lady who was suffering from diabetes, and she had her regular medication and she had abundant amount of medicines at home. So that's I didn't have any limitations caring for them because they were all the time demanding, because he was my friend and he was asking all my opinions and giving me up-to-date data about their temperatures and other parameters, what they can measure, even blood glucose levels. So all 14 days passed by without any much bad complications, and smoothly they recovered from fever episodes. They all had fever, and I treated only with paracetamol. The kids were having fun playing all around the house because father was at home. At the time, he was not at home because he was and the COVID was not there. With this second wave, all family members with the disease were quarantined. PHIs never visited them, and they had one call from a public health inspector. They never had a call from MOH. I know that even I tried to connect with them. It was a busy time. Nobody answered calls. I know now as a MOH, when we are doing PCRs, we are having PPE kits. We are wearing personal protection equipments. We can't answer calls. I now can forgive them for not answering calls. But that time, when I was at the hospital doing mental health work, I never had to use personal protective equipments. So I was cursing them and scolding them and blaming them for not answering calls and not keeping in touch with the patients in the community. But now I can understand how busy MOH and PHI can be with PCR testing and rapid antigen testings. So mother developed a cough and cold, settled with steaming and hot water gargling. They never used any other medication, only with regular clinic medication. And my friend's wife developed a headache, nasal block and fever, which recovered with gargling and steaming. So my friend Nagu asked me to share with you this idea. What I inculcated on them, what I instilled was, as a mental health doctor, the positive thoughts. I always told them, this is very easy to come out. please look after your blood glucose level, take your medications regularly, and do some exercises, and have a quality good food, which not half boiled but full boiled food, and take some good fruit for their antioxidants, because it boosts up their immunity, and the mentality, the positive mentality also boost up immunity. So he was telling me, share with your friends, the doctors, tell them that not to frighten the patients, but to tell them that they can come out easily. We had some patients in our schoolmates, among our schoolmates, they were COVID patients. So they also recovered. I asked them to call Nagu and tell him that it is very easy to come out if you keep up to the standards and listen to doctor's advice. But my friend developed insomnia after recovering from COVID-19. He could not sleep for more than 21 days. Even the daytime he could not sleep, nighttime he could not sleep. So I helped him with a slight medication. I gave him clonazepam 0.25 milligram SOS basis when he was and he recovered well after 3 weeks. In July, all of them, the 3 adults, got vaccinated. Mother got AstraZeneca, Oxford, and my friend and wife, they got Sinopharm. They even sent me the vaccination cards. So my friend was lucky enough to have friends who could deliver them dry rations and send them glucometer and pulse oximeter, and also Ayurvedic herbals like Kottamalli and other tonics, Ayurvedic tonics. And my friend could get abundant amount of good quality foods, and even the other friends were sharing good stories with them, how they could come out without any complication out of COVID. And they all were sharing these experiences. So I think that helped my friend a lot to boost up his mentality and his fear about the disease. As a GP in this scenario, I could achieve the patient-centered care and family care as well. I could continue the care afterwards as well, because now also he's in touch with me, shares with me his physical health and other things. But now his blood glucose levels are out more than 140. I could give them a comprehensive care and some idea about prevention, and I could coordinate with other services that he could get into. But I could not liaise with his MOH and public health inspector or his routine GP. Thank you very much, my dear friends. I can ask and answer some questions if you have. So I thank my MCGP colleagues, especially Gobit and Sankar, my mentors and friends in Sri Lanka Medical Association Council and GP Council. And my patients, especially, who always teach me, and I have always the reflections with them, what I went through, what I did, and the mistakes that then they taught me well how to come out as a good GP. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Asita. So you have done great work. Actually, you have always been with the basics of GPs and gone to with all the trust and all the GPs like family physicians, all principles. You are managed with the patient with all the cares in the comprehensive and holistic manner. Thank you for the your case, and we are listening very nicely, greatly appreciated. Is there any questions? Oh, we will go for that and we will complete the question later on. So anyway, I think we can get some question now. Any question from the audience?
Hello.
You mentioned consultation via telephone. How is it
ethical to charge a patient for such consultations, and if is there a protocol to adhere to?
Shena De Silva? Ishana.
Correct.
Right. Ishana, I was not charging my friend actually, but the platforms where the health ministry introduced and other private sector hospitals introduced, you can charge. Even the charge is ethical and it's standard, but the GP can change the charges. It's not, you can't, it's not like there's no maximum price like that they do. What I heard and what I read in the articles that was shared in my emails, but I did not charge my patient.
Asit, I can add something to that.
Yes, please. Yes.
Now, some of the patients, when they come to the practice, probably I guess that they are COVID, probably infected with COVID, right? And
Yes.
then we direct them to PCR or rapid antigen test. And then at that moment, of course, we charge at the practice. But then I have no way to sort of charge after that. I have followed up certain patients for 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. And several times they have called me. One patient was there. I think she had called, her whole family was infected. And she had called about 20 or 30 times for the 14 days, in addition to my calls. So we never charged because we think of our social responsibility as well. But I think even if they are charged, I don't see, I personally, I don't see any fault in that, or I don't think it's unethical. But of course, at this sort of a disaster and where the whole society has been affected, I think we have some sort of a social responsibility as well. I think most of us are like that. There would be certain Shylocks and all, but very rarely, right? Yeah, that's my thought. That's my about.
Thank you, sir.
Just I can add on that. You know that when we got a first mobile app in Sri Lanka, I don't mention the name, and they tried to get the official authorization from Ministry of Health about this online. And finally, actually, I also in that app, after seeing their agreement and all policy, I have read that they have got the official permission, and also it's ethical for the non-direct consultation, maybe in the distant consultation. As Asita said, we can modify the charges. Like Sangha said, even I manage a lot of patients, and recently, so in between the lockdown, I have seen 2-3 patients in person. Then one of the patients suddenly come and kept the envelope and went. Actually, then I am surprised. Then actually, he was paid for the consultation fee for the over the calls. So that much of patients are there. So that I think if they are possible, or if you want, other than the social responsibility, you can, because you are spending your time and valuable time, because you are everyone busy nowadays. So I think we can. It's ethical too.
And we can even at this point, you have your patients now. Physically, you are open, even though they have the curfew. You cannot keep your GP practice open. But when you call them and when you take care of them over the phone, online or whatever the manner, it's a good plus point for your practice, even though you don't charge, for your practice to get developed. And sometimes as a medical officer of health in this area, Kakira, which is the worst area in Anuradhapura district out of 22 MOHs, now we are going down. We were dancing with the waves up and there. I asked my colleagues in hospital, some of them are connected right now. I asked them, please give medication from OPD. If the person comes from the contact, somebody else who is not contacted with the patient, they can come with the symptoms in a piece of paper and consult the doctor at the OPD. So my colleagues, they issue medication for those patients. So they get medication. That's continuity of care is maintained even at the OPD level in the government sector in my hospital, district hospital, which is the base hospital. Any other thoughts from the audience?
Any more questions?
I think if we manage patients, it's reasonable to charge. I mean, we should take out our social responsibility, but still, if you think like if the patient has to go to a private sector institution or a hotel or anything, they will have to pay in lakhs.
Sure. Yes.
But
I agree.
we don't charge that much. We right, and we somehow even with our contacts, we somehow deliver the drugs even to the patient, but we don't charge that much.
Yeah. And the coordination of care that we give through other services, you can go to OPD, you can come to PCR testing at this place, and other doctors who play the GP role and the government doctors role. We try to give maximum service even from the government sector to our private patients. Out of, it's a...
Okay, so anyone, any questions? Or we will go for the clinical pulse, or we'll come back for the another session for the questions?
Yes, I think they are a bit silent because this is a cafe, so they can ask any question from this.
Yeah. Yeah, we will let the on way. We'll go for the clinical pulse.
Thank you, Gobi.
Okay, thank you, Asita. Sangha?
Yeah, move to the next slide. Yeah, great. Gobit, you can go ahead.
Yeah, actually we are just
Okay, this
we
okay.
thought
I'll
of to
just,
discuss.
yeah, I was thinking like these are some scenarios, or probably actually these questions or problems were directed by our one colleagues. These are things that come to our mind, and sometimes when we meet, not essentially at a cafe, but even when we meet here and there, we ask the other colleague, what do you think? What do you do? This is what I do. So that's why we thought of having this sort of few questions, problems, where we can exchange our thoughts, ideas, and learn from each other. So the first one is this. Gobit, you can go ahead.
Yeah, how did you measure blood pressure during COVID pandemic? Anyone?
I do measure pressure. I take the patient. It's normally my patient is about 6 feet away from me at my consultation at my practice. When she asks, when she requests, or when I feel that I should check blood pressure, I take the patient to my to me. Then I turn the chair where she breathes out, not to me. And even my fan or my air condition is not working maybe, but my fan is from myself to the patient. And I check the blood pressure quickly and send the patient back to her seat, his seat, which is 6 feet away. I do and give that service because we are vaccinated. We should give that service. And I sometimes feel very bad about not checking. Yes.
What I
Gobit,
usually,
what about you? Okay. Yes,
Sangha, what I usually do is I have put a double polythene curtain from ceiling to the floor, and then in the middle there's a small opening. A patient looks away from me, but he or she puts the hand inside, and then I put the cuff and check the blood pressure.
Yes.
Okay, I will tell what I do. But okay, this is like my anyway. As Asita told, my patient also sits something like say some 3 meters away from me. I also have a double polythene in between because now my consultation area has extended to the waiting area. So the previous consultation area's door covers with this double polythene. And anyway, I am wearing all these, face shield, double masks, and the gown and everything. So, but the thing is, I use the digital blood pressure meter usually. It's calibrated, and I'm sure about its measurements. It has always been telling with the other mercury meter. Whenever I want to measure the blood pressure, I go to the patient. Near the patient's chair, there's a small table-like thing where the blood pressure meter, the digital one, is kept. So it's always in the heart level. It's the height of the table is the heart level usually. So I go there and I put the cuff and I come back to the distant area, and then I observe. So I usually go there. My principle is I don't remain with the patient for more than say 30 seconds or so on. So when I want to listen to the lungs also, I go there and I ask the patient to look away, and I measure, auscultate from the back. So I go to the patient usually when I want to go there to measure blood pressure or to examine. As Asita told, I also feel like it's our responsibility because we are vaccinated, and we know definitely scientifically a very short exposures would not give any sort of a problem. I mean, if it's a 30-second or 1 minute or something like that. So that's my practice. Others also can tell. What about Gobit?
Sanka, actually, I have the some sophisticated one. I have the glass cabin. I also see the patient 3 meters away. But when I wanted to examine the patient, even the auscultation or even the pressure and all, I have the glass cabin. So I asked to come to the sit on the other side of the glass cabin, and I had used the automatic one. And unfortunately, I had joined the mobile. Otherwise, I had shown the picture in my computer. So it's easily I can do. Actually, I got the many patients nowadays because some other neighbor practices are not checking the blood pressure. Even patients come and only for ask for the blood pressure, even not my patient. So I happy to do it because even they have to get the services some other area at least. So it's a class cabin with there's a hole with that. There's no any context from the patient at all for me.
Nice.
What about the others? What about the audience?
Sanka, one of my batchmate is joined with us from UK, Malita Hettiarachchi. Malita, can you share your idea with us how you do in UK GP practice? Malita?
So Asita, actually, I'm from United States, not UK.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I am basically a hospitalist. That means I work mainly in the hospital, we wear PPEs and then go to the patients at the bedside and take care of everything basically. There was a time period that I wasn't even vaccinated. What we do is like we have a list of patients like during like heavy COVID times, we had even like 30, 40 patients in our list that we had to go and see. So we reviewed everything because we have electronic medical records. We review everything in the computers. Nurses do the vital signs in the morning, but we try not to have too many people go to the room all the time. So when we go in to do the rounds and see the patient and do the examination, we do the vital signs when we are inside. And there were situations that I had to take the patient to the bathroom, so I don't wait the nurse to come in because it's exposure. So we took care of patients certain things. This is the time we were not vaccinated. Right now, like we don't have that much of fear. So certain times we spend about like 30, 40 minutes in the patient's room with all PPE. And still we were able to survive without getting COVID. For the outpatient basis, we use most of the time telemedicine, and the patients were able to call us, and then we used video conferencing as well. And if patients really need to be admitted, we brought them to the hospital. Otherwise, we manage everything as outpatient basis. Like we could even prescribe oxygen to the outpatients.
Thank you very much for that insight.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone? So we can go for the another Pearl. Okay. How do you issue medical certificate to your clients? I think nowadays we are getting more and more requests for the medical certificates. So how do we are managing?
As a policy, I issue medical certificates from my GP practice, whom I treated only, not to others who request medical certificates for fees. I don't take,
Yes.
I issue free of charge for my patients only.
Yes, that's of course the normal practices. But anyway, nowadays most of the time we may have to do the online consultation. Even maybe they are our own patient, maybe they know to get our numbers and calling. So we have to read, even we are prescribing drugs over the some text or something. So in that case, we have to give the medical for them also. So I think I have experienced. I am getting more requests at the current time. But anyway, it's a real one. So anyway, we are reading, so we have to give it. So I think we have to issue. Like even though sometimes we are not giving the original hard copy, they are requesting for the soft copy even because they also in the working from home. So I think we have to be flexible during this pandemic and lockdown. I think so.
Rovit and Sankar, now they are giving Agrahara to COVID patients newly.
Yes.
Those who are stayed in immediate care center and hospital, but also home
Yes.
quarantine people can get Agrahara, but positive home quarantine, but not negative home quarantine.
Okay. I didn't know about the home care, but anyway, got even the hospital request for the hospital and ICC stay. They pay.
Yes.
Asit, I'll ask a question from you now. Just say that one of your patients, a regular patient, comes to you and asks, Doctor, I haven't gone for work for 2 days due to some other reason. Say, I had a say something else. Okay, say wedding. He'll say no weddings these days. But let's say, okay. So there would be a problem to me if I don't give a medical certificate, provide a medical certificate to the management. It will affect my job. What would you do?
Sanka, in my practice, I have clearly mentioned a few posters. The patient posts are there, pasted.
Yes, 7 years.
Consult me regarding criminal abortion. They can't request from me unnecessary medicals unless they are treated by me for that ailment. So I very politely and decently refuse the request, and I educate the patient. You have to work when you are well, but the company or the firm and the government will be, you have to work for them to survive. The government to function well, the company to function well, you have to work. So I can't give you a medical. I am not obliged to give you even. So I explain. I have done that so far and not met with any problem. So my patients do regularly come to me. My patients don't go away.
Yeah, if you have a principle and if you have clearly stated that, and then I think there wouldn't be any problem. Me too. Do the same. Like I have displayed a notice telling that I will not provide any false medical certificates, and will not anyway the people who have got treated will be issued a medical certificate free. And I have also mentioned you have to provide a valid document identification, because there are certain people who probably they will just tell I am this person, but will not be the same person. There would be legal implications as well.
Yes.
So better to the better to always double check with the identity as well, because especially the people who are not familiar to you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stories about.
Asanka and Buddhigaya. What about exam purposes? They said that they couldn't go to the exam or something to skip the date for that issuing medical.
Now, to be honest with you, I have done it. I have provided such certificates to non-people.
I'm
to be
also
honest.
doing. Yeah, on my patients, I'm doing.
Yes, but I have cleared it all. This is the last time I'm going to do this. Don't bring anyone else. I will not do it at all after that. But I think we are like part and parcel of their community, and sometimes we are like family friends. So that has certain implications. I think that's the thing. So I have done it. Honestly, I have done it.
And
Sanka, I asked for the admission.
Sanka, Dr. Deshanta is telling something.
Yeah, it's like this.
Yes, Deshan.
Whatever the certificate we give, it's a legal document. So you have to your neck. Whatever we can be producing the codes. So don't give. If you really want to give, please make sure you say if your neck can give, and especially these days, never give upper respiratory tract or viral fever.
Yeah,
because what will happen, the company will ask him to do a PCR, come to work.
Yes.
But this is not the practice, it's wrong. But if you really want to give, safeguard your neck.
Yeah, mentioning that this is not for judicial purposes will not safeguard. So that's wrong. Any medical certificate.
They will produce even though.
You can't tell that. You cannot tell you it can be produced in the courts. You can't tell that.
Yeah, you
Deshant, can I add something?
Yeah.
2-3 years before, Mr. Sucharita Gamlat was the secretary to the this Judiciary Commission. He sent a circular stating clearly any registered doctor's medical certificate can be taken up at the courts. You can't mention.
That's what I was studying. That's what I was studying.
You can't mention anything.
Even
that
our prescription is a legal document where we put our seal and the stamp.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing, Sanka, I asked for the admission card of the exam. If they, even my non-patient asked me for the exam purpose, I asked them, please provide me. Sometimes even at Kakira where I practice, one doctor has gone to Trincomalee District Court to give evidence because she did not know to whom that she gave the medical. Like Sanka said very clearly, you have to get the identity card or any sort of identification to know whether the person is from where, to whom that I am giving the certificate. I have the duplicate of, in my medical certificate book, I have the duplicate with me. I write all the details, taking my time. After learning the lesson from that, because that doctor went, she charged only 300 rupees for the medical, and she went spending more than 6,500 rupees from Kakira to Trincomalee to give evidence at the courts.
And I think only keeping the duplicate is not enough. I usually take a photo and put it into the separate file in the Google Drive. Especially in a time like this, if somebody cross-questions me, if I can't go to the practice, I have it in the drive. So that
that's good done. Yes. So good, because you don't ask the patient to remove their face mask, you can't identify.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I also have a duplicate. I mean, I have a carbon copy there. So always it's better to have whatever the medical certificate you give, better to have a duplicate. I also think, and I suggest never to charge for a medical and be strict with the medicals, and I mean never to charge from a patient and never to give a false medical, never to give a
Yes.
medical to a person who has never got treated from you.
Yeah.
Sankar, this is not regarding clinical purpose, but Dr. Malita has posted a nice question in the chat, and Dr. Asita has answered. But I think the audience should pay attention to that also. The question is, if you do you screen patients before they show up in the clinic or your office, so that it reduces exposure to your staff and patients in your waiting area?
Yes, of course.
Would have done if our patients also do give a call and come.
But that is just, I
I-
think
I still
she is
practice.
speaking about doing the rapid antigen, right?
It's not necessarily rapid antigen. Like sometimes
As in
people
the
just show
history.
up. Oh, I
yeah,
have
yeah.
like respiratory symptoms, and then they just show up in the office. So like
Yeah.
we developed a system. Like if anybody wants to come and see a doctor, we provide them the doctor's office number. We post it outside the door. Before you enter the premises, you need to call, and the nurse answer the phone, and then do a screening and say, oh, you need to do a rapid antigen or you need to PCR. We just direct them to do the test before they show up in front of the doctor's office or the patient waiting area. So that way we reduce the exposure.
Sankar, if you can remember the first COVID guideline for the primary care doctors,
Notice.
We prepared a questionnaire,
Yes.
and I used to have a hard copy in the practice. So before the patient enters, the practice girl asks those questions. The patient, when the patient is outside, that is if the patient comes without calling. And if they take an appointment over the phone, then we screen over the phone.
Yes, Subhan. So still I practice like Subhan. My outside clinic door is always closed. So they have to call from out, and then only I only go and open. So that every time they should call me from the out. Then I will verify, and then only I will take in.
So that means if there is any respiratory symptoms, you are not taking them.
No, I will take it. I will take the Mokia. Sometimes if I not wear the face shield, I will put that one. Sometimes
Oh,
I'll normally
they will
I
show
will the mask
some
and all.
backache.
Sorry?
Asking, they complain some backache. Then
Yeah.
backache is not a
Yeah,
problem.
in the case,
At the end, they are saying I have a cough also. Then finish.
This is
no,
the true story.
But that is not anything. It's not practical. That this calling business, then 24 hours we have to dedicate to this. And also this
but I
questionnaire.
still practice
This
more than a year.
questionnaire, all the
Still.
patients have this respiratory and the fever these days. Then we can't
Yeah.
see the patient if there's a questionnaire there.
And another
And
thing
No,
is,
no, we
if we
not
take
reduce at all.
like
rat
like Dr.
antigen,
Buddhi said,
the indicated patient, we can't do a rat. How to do the screening of rat?
like Dr. Buddhi said, there was one incident for my friend's clinic. That patient came in for a backache, but then later only he disclosed that he was planning to do antigen by the MOH. So the
That
COVID-wise
happened
patient is
always.
asymptomatic. But the patient did not have any respiratory symptoms, but he had a exposure, strong exposure.
It's like these patients, they know how to bypass the questionnaire. One thing. And the other thing, they like whatever we said and done, the system is, they are not used to have this online consultation or any telephone consultation. They want physical consultation. So when they come, it's like breaking ice. If you don't adhere to them, you might lose the patient. Some they won't listen. I had patients, they have come and before I tell anything, they have lowered down the mask and show their throat even. So it's a very tricky call.
Dr. Samsamir has asked, can't we try respiratory symptom patients and have a look? What's the idea of the audience about that?
Full-time GP practice, I agree.
Yes. Part-time practice.
We do quick
We rely
part-time
on-
practice.
Yeah, we rely on keeping the respiratory patient outside, and then if we have to auscultate even, there should be ventilation, good ventilation. So it's a risk to take them inside consultation room.
In Tequilava, we do rapid antigens and PCR testing from 12 noon to evening, like 3 in the evening. So as the MOH, I have I made a format and sent to all GPs in my area to refer the patients as a bundle of patients, or like one patient, or they can give it to them and ask to come to my where we do the PCRs and get the services done. So we are trying to screen and get the patients out of the community to quarantine them. So we do this GP practice as well as the good government standard practice. So we try to minimize the exposures of all of us.
So that means doing PCR at your place.
Not my place, public ground. There's a nice shade, big trees. So we do that open area. So we do from the free of charge.
Right.
Most service.
And in our Spice Route WhatsApp group, I saw one of the doctors has posted, why don't GPs start doing rapid antigen tests? Any idea?
Or if I arrange my place, then all the patients will gather to do that, and my other patient won't come this very high risk place because of a lot of COVID patients are gathering. So that is a threat then.
That is a threat.
Yeah,
But
like
if
the
you
same
have a
thing like
place,
HIV.
you can do it. But anyway, now there's a new guideline in the MOH level. I think Asita knows from the RDHS, we have to fill a form, and there should be a microbiologist cover should be there. And I think nearby some GPs are doing with they have a small laboratory setup, and with the official registration under the RDHS with the microbiologist cover.
Dr. Gobi,
Okay,
shall we go to the last?
Subodh, can we go for?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, next one. What is your idea about getting X-ray reported? First of all, how many of all getting reported and treating the patient, or you are getting with your knowledge and going through?
I know one of the doctors, well-established general practitioner, she usually asks every X-ray to be reported, and if the patient can't afford, she will pay the amount. But then what she does is, when she get the reports, before she read whatever the radiologist has commented, she take a piece of paper and look at the X-ray, and she writes her findings and then tally her findings with the radiologist report. And she says that is how she learned to interpret X-rays.
That's good. But anyway.
Exactly. Yes.
So she is paying to learn.
Yeah, she pays for the patients who can't afford. Usually in Ragam and Gampaha area, they charge around 300 to report an X-ray.
No, more than that.
No, when I heard this story.
Oh.
So she said like that, it's just 300. So she pays the amount if the patient can't afford. For, for most of her patients, they can afford 300 is nothing. But if the patient is very poor, she will pay it. And then she does like that. So she learns in a practical way.
Okay, anyway, I do know most of the time I will see if all the X-rays, but anyway, if there are any there are significant finding and all, so then I will send for that. It may be around very few for that because for the further referrals and all, if I need it, so I will do that.
Buddhika, what do you think?
Yeah, I used to that.
Train some.
Yeah, because I don't have X-rays in my place. So when with the request, I request the reporting as well and have to give a good history. For the X-ray reporting, you have to provide a good history. And the bottom of my request form, I have written the history like this and this. And I asked them to come with the report. In a way, we can learn, but we can't learn much because we can first, when the patient come with the report, first I see the X-ray and get my idea, then I go to the report and see how am I correct or not. So it's like that. One way we can learn, and other way is with a confidently we can approach to that because we are not expert in that field. And there are instances in the hospital, sometimes one chest X-ray that radiologist said normal, but our oncologist found that there's a abscess behind the heart shadow, in the heart shadow, not behind. There's abscess, who it will, but he missed, radiologist missed. So better to get a expert knowledge for that. But but if you are working in a they say respiratory ward, if you are very familiar with the chest X-rays, or maybe working for orthopedic for a long period and very confident, then okay. Otherwise, better to have that thing.
Yeah, like Dr. Buddhika said, we should always correlate clinically. Yeah, the radiologist depends on our history and that's the interpreter dependent thing. So if they can miss some very rare event, they can miss. So the clinician should then correlate with the patient's clinical findings.
Yes.
There are still about 40 people in the audience, so we would like to know the ideas of others.
Yes.
MCP colleagues are there. Dr.
Yeah.
Dr. Irakodi.
There's a silent majority, it seems.
Yeah.
Physical cafe would be much nicer, Sankar.
Physical cafe. Okay, is there any questions from even for the previous Asita's
No, anyone can express the idea. Very casual talk.
Clinical
Yeah.
pearls.
Now it's somebody asked a question: how do you treat post-COVID symptoms like insomnia? All this has to be. I tried with my patient because he had the fear, of course, that his mother would die or he would be hospitalized. So how can I go into a male only place and get quarantine while my 2 kids are small and wife is alone at home and nobody to take care and get stuff to them as well. So all the concerns were there, like social concerns, family concerns, and his own concerns. So he was worried and he was more anxious. That's why he couldn't sleep. But now I think Sanka, I saw on September 14th, night session is coming. Neurologist is there, one of my junior batchmate, Dr. Kisharan. He's discussing post-COVID neurological symptoms, and Dr. Gotabe Ranasinghe is discussing post-COVID cardiological symptoms. So that would be much elaborative and specialized session, so we can join that as well.
I saw some I can't remember where, a post which was telling when you see post-COVID symptoms, refer to a respiratory vision. I totally disagree with that. I mean, most of us GPs are handling and coming across these symptoms. And actually, GP should be empowered and let them handle most of the symptoms. Serious symptoms which need hospital admissions. Most of them will just affect their quality of life. I think GPs should know about that. I think that's a very good article on. I'm just to find that. You all can probably learn out of that. Asit, I actually posted that on the council group as well. Let me find it. In the meantime, as you told, some of them, these things are anxiety related. Not only insomnia, there are true things like high blood pressure and body aches are well known to be there, and cough, and we are sometimes wheezing, shortness of breath, lack of energy, all these things.
Very correct. Very correct.
So we just discuss that whether we can have a discussion like this, a special one with all our GPs to discuss about long COVID as well. So we'll try that. In the meantime, I will try to find that article as well to post here.
So it's a viral disease.
Add to your opinion, people will always try to divide like post-COVID thing as respiratory, neurological, cardiological, likewise. But I think as a GP, we are in a better place to provide whole person care for these patients. We can get their expert inputs, but these are our patients.
Yeah, there's a question from the chat box. How did you all manage non-bronchial asthma COPD patients these days, such as nebulization, etc.?
Gobit, I asked my regular patients who are either asthmatics and COPD patients. It's 350 rupees. They can buy that mask and the tube, which we can connect to the nebulizer. So they all are equipped with their own mask and nebulizing tube. That's the portion that I use, so they can clean themselves and come back to us.
Dr. Asita, I have something that we practice here, like we stopped doing nebulizer treatment because it increases the risk of spreading the virus. So we like, even those who are on nebulizer, we ask them to use the spacer and use the inhaler, because that way, like if the whole household is COVID positive, and then there's no point in restricting nebulizer, because we know nebulizer will deliver more inhaled corticosteroids and treatment to the lungs. So then that's fine. But otherwise, if the others are not infected, we discourage use of nebulizer and give them the spacer so they can use the spacer.
And if the patients can't afford the spacer, there's an alternative which the earlier doctors, I think, when Dr. BJC Pereira introduced this thing, they have used the coffee cup. Make a small hole in the coffee cup, the paper coffee cup, make it well fitting to the patient's nose and mouth, and give the puff, and they throw it away.
You mean the disposable?
Yes. Possible.
Spacer. It's possible spacer.
Yes.
And this salbutamol MDI, the 10 puffs equal to 1 nebula. It's nearly 10 puffs. So we can use instead of nebulizing this salbutamol puff to bronchodilate if there is an emergency.
More than 6 years.
Yes, and also for the cheaper Hela we can make not but only the coffee cup. You know this Fanta, Coca-Cola, this mega bottle. From the mega bottle, one end you can make a hole to put that MDI. Then you need a bout for that to prepare it. I can't explain actually. I have to show that. And then the opening, the knob, we can cut it from about and make a the balloon part with a cello tape, and you can make a cheaper Hela. One day we will discuss. It's good actually. It's like an inhaler. It's like a spacer.
Yeah.
What I do in my practice is, but I basically use auxiliary nebulizer, and I do it outside, totally outside in the garden. So one of my staff girls will fix it and come inside again.
Yeah.
Once it's done, only they go inside.
That's
Go out
also
and
good. Yeah, that's
switch off.
fine.
Right.
I have shared.
I have posted the link.
Yeah, I shared it in the screen. I hope others can see.
Yes, management of post-acute COVID-19 primary care.
And it seems there's a podcast. regarding this.
Yes.
If you download this app to the mobile, you can listen to this free of charge. Only the internet cost.
So the question, yeah, there's a question about I come across 2 patients presented to me SOB on normal work after Jab Sinopharm vaccine. Is there any relation to vaccine?
Got many complaints like that.
We can't say about the relation, but anyway, they got panic, maybe real SOB and all. We may have seen the patients. I don't think about the relation of vaccine.
And we have changed the total mindset of the public. They relate many things to vaccines.
Yes.
There are true side effects as well. Recently, I found one like axillary lymphadenopathy. Then what I did was I went into literature and saw, and it's a true complication, not a complication actually, side effect. And actually what I did was reassuring because it shows that the immune response had started.
Yes.
So there can be certain side effects as well. But what I suggest is if we can just go to the literature and see if it's evidence-based medicine always. So there can be such reports always. I don't know about this shortness of breath, but there are some other side effects as well.
Okay, is there any questions or any more things?
Post-viral fatigue syndrome will be similar to other dengue fever, like the post-viral fatigue syndrome will be there, right? With COVID.
Sorry?
They always complain about the malaise and lack of energy and things like
Yes,
that.
to add
Yes,
to that, there
yes.
are several doctors who got infected and even they complain of this easy fatigability.
Yes, yes. One of my colleagues got infected. She has twins and another kid. My additional MOH. She's 45 years, and her mother-in-law also got infected and she was with high flow oxygen for 19 days. So her card came from Peradeniya Hospital as asymptomatic COVID infection. But afterwards she had high BP, like 200 by 100. Then she was, I referred her to cardiologist. He started diltiazem and losartan potassium as well, 50 BD, diltiazem also 60 BD maybe. She got all right for 2-3 days. Then again, she developed shortness of breath, which she had from the beginning. And she told me it can't be psychological because she was telling me it can't be psychological because I walk about 20 meters only, I get this shortness of breath. Then she went to a chest physician and he started on inhalers. Now she's all right. Earlier we thought with COVID infection, maybe she's anxious and there's anxiety which is going on. Sometimes we can also jump before, into the conclusions before going into the real details. So
as we discussed, the GP is the best person to judge these things because most of the patient would tell us, Doctor Hari buying in a Dr. Monovid, so we know these people really they are anxious.
Yeah.
But when they go to a specialist, they will sort of, the reason for encounter is actually not the presenting complaint there. So that's the thing. So that's why I think GP should be well equipped with and empowered with the facts and the related to whatever the long COVID symptoms, the long COVID syndrome. I think we had a very useful chat, pretty nice chat. So Gobit, you can, if there are no more questions, you can call it a day.
Yeah. Yes, thank you everyone. I think we had a great session over the around 45 minutes. No, yeah, 1 hours and 45 minutes. 15 minutes. I think we first initially we have done the great about the home care, even with the initial phase, how we manage the GP story. Even nowadays we are doing the extensive home care, even with the ministry guideline. And after that, we have just discussed some clinical pearls. Actually, it's good if we share previously with other doubts or any practical issues, we can discuss among ourselves and we can find the answer or get cleared within the group. It's open groups, then we can confident what our colleagues doing, and we can also follow that. So thank you everyone for the listening and participated in the late night, and thank you. So we will meet in the session within this month. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Asita
And Dr. Gobit, I would like to add for the people in the audience, those who are willing to present their pearls, their experiences in the GP's Cafe, can contact me or Sankar or anyone in the committee.
Yes. Yes, because this is good because we can get cleared from our own colleague without going for the other people. So if you get any the pearl-like questions, we can discuss ourselves. Please keep on touching. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, always. Our CPD lead is Supun. You can always call Supun or whoever. Someone from the Spicewood Council, even Gobit, myself, or anyone else. And if you are really willing to present, you can you are always welcome. And I think for the next session also we have already got one already reserved, but I think many are there who would like to present, who would like request one. Thank you very much. Gobit, sir.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Stay safe.
Bye.